Ronan, Head of Project Information Management at Gamuda, where he supports the different teams working on BIM and data management across the various business units in the group. Thank you, Ronan, for joining us today on RealtyNXT.
Hey, it's great. Nice to meet you.
So to start, could you tell us about a bit of the trends today which is happening in construction?
So there's a number of trends. Obviously, BIM is one of the bigger trends that everybody speaks about. But the one that's more of interest to me at the moment is actually data in construction. So we're seeing a lot of people now collecting a lot of data for construction projects, whether that's from mobile devices, whether that's photographs, whether it's using drones, whether it's using digital forms, any number of different sources of data. And we're now facing a big challenge to how to use that data, analyze it, get some kind of insights about current project progress, and ultimately we want to use it for analytics. How do we predict what's going to happen? How do we predict the outcome of projects? So data in construction is a big opportunity and a big challenge at the same time.
So what is BIM's role in the construction sector and how has it changed since inception?
So BIM essentially started off as 3D modeling of construction projects, and then as it matured, people started to realize that the information in the models was much more valuable than the actual models themselves. So over the last couple of years, clients have become much more savvy about specifying how to use BIM to capture the information. So that information can be used for asset management, it can be used for costing, it can be used for planning. There's a lot of things you can make use of the information for. So the industry has matured in certain sectors, tending mainly towards the larger projects, the more sophisticated projects in terms of adoption. But we're seeing a lot more people looking for the information and looking to capture the information as much as possible. And then following along from that, there's been a lot of development of standards. So the UK developed the PAS 1192 standards between 2012, 2013 and onwards. And those standards now become the foundation of the new ISO standards, the ISO 19650 standards. So we're seeing a lot more uptake in terms of globalized standards. So it's making it easier for us to work in different markets at different times.
So I was reading about your profile and I understood that BIM was something which interested you and that's how your journey started.
Oh, my journey started before BIM. So when I started my career, I started in 1996, which now seems like a long time ago, but it went by in a blink of an eye. I started work in Ireland, and the first couple of projects I was doing in Ireland, we were actually doing 3D modeling. So we were actually doing 3D structural modeling, whether that's steel work or concrete work. And then I located to Hong Kong in 2000, and I continued my journey in 3D in Hong Kong on some major projects there. And then from 2003 till about 2008, 2009, I was running a 3D consultancy firm in Hong Kong. And it was around that time people started coining the term BIM. So pretty much since I left university nearly 25 years ago, I've been involved in some form or other of digital construction, whether it's been 3D modeling or some other version of it. So I've ended up, that's become my niche. So anything to do with 3D modeling, information modeling, and now it's become data in construction. So I've matured as the industry has matured in terms of my understanding and the use of technologies.
Right. So in India, like how we see in construction, BIM is still being used and there's still many questions around it. What kind of challenges do you face in your market and in other markets in terms of when it comes to adoption of BIM?
Well, it's a cultural thing. So getting people to move away from traditional workflows is quite challenging. So a lot of architects, a lot of engineers, even the quantity surveyors, the contractors, they're used to a paper-based process. Whether that's in terms of pricing projects, whether that's in terms of monitoring projects, they're very driven by paper. So getting them to move away from traditional processes to data processes, model-driven processes, collaborative forms of contracts, it's a huge cultural change. So the technology is there. The technology has been there for quite some time, but it's actually dealing with the way that we work in the industry, how we price jobs, how we tender for work, how we manage risk, how we share risk. All those issues have to be resolved to make BIM even more effective. So there are lots of people building very good models and collecting lots of good information, but very often they become stifled by certain forms of contract, certain forms of pricing, a lack of resource, a lack of training, a lack of investment. So there's a lot of cultural issues we have to overcome.
Do you still face any problem in terms of BIM adaptation, especially when it comes to Malaysia?
Well, in Gamuda in Malaysia, we've been very fortunate. So we've always been pushing the envelope and pushing investment into our staff. So we believe heavily in training staff and developing staff. but the broader market is still sees it as a cost rather than as a value. So there's not enough people investing into buying software, buying hardware, which is actually cheap, but they're not investing into training the people and developing the skills. And certain people will say, well, the client doesn't need it and the client doesn't want it, and there's always an excuse, but essentially it comes down to a lack of willingness to invest.
Agreed. So how BIM can improve productivity in construction?
So the low hanging fruit, or the easiest one to do, is basically avoiding problems on site and reducing risk on site. So one of our biggest successes actually is moving from the digital office into the construction project. So we've been using augmented reality to do that, and we've just won an award in Malaysia for that process. So we're actually using the latest versions of the iPads with Unity as a software, and we're actually delivering the models to site in an augmented reality. So we can see that the problem has been resolved in the model, and then we make sure that the guys on site are following what's being engineered and coordinated. So just getting the coordination done, getting the engineering done, that's a huge, huge benefit. And then obviously the follow-on from that is collecting all the information that the owner wants for managing the assets. So the other thing we've been doing is looking at how do we collect the information, using a model as a starting point, but then using tablets, other devices on site to actually collect the information. So the big value is reducing risk of reworking on site, reducing mistakes on site. That's the big value.
Right. So a lot of PropTech companies that we have noticed have entered into BIM solutions. So
Yeah.
do your firm also collaborate with such PropTech companies, or it's completely inbuilt? You are focusing right now to create a lot of technology when it comes to BIM solution?
No, we collaborate inside and outside the organization. So Gamuda itself has actually got a property arm, and we've actually got a property development team, and they're heavily invested in BIM. So they've actually got a BIM team doing design, feasibility, and project management using BIM, and then the models are provided to the contractor. In some cases, that's Gamuda, sometimes it's other contractors, and there's a heavy influence around BIM in terms of managing the construction projects. So we don't develop our own software. We use all off-the-shelf products. We want to use best in class, best in industry. So we have a suite of products that we use, from Autodesk to Bentley to Viewpoint for Trimble. It depends on what we're doing. It depends on the project. We get the best tool we can for the job that we're doing.
Right. How BIM can help procurement managers?
So that's one of the big challenges that we're facing, is how do we tie the commercial part of the projects back to the design and technical engineering parts. So we're currently doing a digital transformation study around doing 5D exercises. So we're actually looking at model-based pricing and model-based estimating. And that throws up a number of challenges around standard method of measurements, bills of quantities, also how we do procurement. So we've started a process of, for example, we've got an ERP system we're using for actual digital procurement. So we're now doing auctioning, we're doing e-auctioning, we're getting suppliers to tender on our Ariba platform. So we're starting to figure out how to link the engineering and digital engineering side to the actual procurement and commercial side. But it's proving to be one of the bigger challenges. So we have not figured it out, but we're on a roadmap to try and figure it out.
So such challenges you're facing only in Malaysia market or in other markets as well?
No, I think it's none of the issues are unique to Malaysia. These are trends that are kind of, we see them in Singapore, we see them in Australia, I've seen them in Hong Kong. I know from my research that they occur in India, they occur in other regions. So these are not unique to any particular market. These are kind of general global trends that people are trying to resolve.
Okay. So what does the future look like for BIM, like in Malaysia or in other global markets?
So we have a saying that BIM is here to stay. So it's not really what the future looks like, it's how we're going to manage it. So for us, it's how do we actually leverage the data? How do we leverage the information? So to make things more efficient, for us to do more with less in terms of resources. COVID has taught us a very valuable lesson about what happens when we have less people on site and less people working in offices, how we manage that situation. So it's not a case of what is the future for BIM. The future is here. The question is, how do we get value from it?
Agreed. So what are the other technologies which hold a good promise for the future and are solving real problems in the construction space?
It's the simple things. So we're not trying to do rocket science. We're not trying to do overly complicated things. So we've done a process of transforming all of our paper reporting and paper auditing to a digital process. So everything's now done digitally. So that's speeding up how we capture information. It's reducing our risk of losing those records. So all the records are obviously saved and kept. So that makes it much better. We're looking to things like augmented reality. So a lot of people have now got access to smart devices. So how do we actually give them tools that they can use for checking on site, checking progress, checking everything else? So we're trying to keep it simple. The most successful applications we have are the ones that are simple and straightforward to use. And we're not looking for blue sky thinking. We're not looking for bleeding edge. We have an eye to it. We always do have an eye for innovation, but it's not absolutely critical.
So now the BWT event is happening, and you're going to be in a panel discussion. So what are the key things you're looking forward to in this particular event?
Well, so the panel is very, very interesting. Some of them I know very, very well personally. So I've known some of Tommy and Tyrone for quite some time, and it's going to be a very interesting discussion because we all come from very different backgrounds, culturally and experience-wise, and everything else. So we've got a very diverse panel. But what's interesting with these panels is I know where these guys are coming from. I know what they're going to be, what the talking points are. For me, it's the questions that we're going to get from the delegates. The more questions we can get from people attending, they will actually lean towards extracting some valuable nuggets from the people on the panel. So for me, it's always interesting what the questions are, because that's always a good indication of where the audience is at, where the industry's at, what the learning is, what the demand is. So I always enjoy these panels more from the perspective of learning from the questions rather than actually learning from the other speakers.
Also definitely create awareness also once you give your specific insight in that particular topic. It helps everyone to understand more about that technology or about that space.
Yeah, and my experience and my insights may not be aligned with everybody else. I may have a skew on certain things, or I may have an opinion on certain things. I've got a bias. Certain things I like, certain things I don't like. So it's always good to get a different perspective and find out what other people are thinking. And the great thing with BWT, it covers a very wide geographic area. So it picks up everybody from New Zealand and Australia all the way across to India and further afield. So you get a very diverse response.
So what's next for you in terms of projects or in terms of the BIM?
So we're currently working on tenders for projects in Australia. We're working on a project in Singapore. We've got a couple of projects that we're looking at, obviously in Malaysia, and there's other opportunities coming up in the region. So I'm currently in my role looking at future opportunities, and we've obviously got to deliver the projects we currently have. So we've got to complete the work that we're doing for clients like the MRT, Lend-Lease, and other clients that we have in Malaysia. So I'm looking to the next phase of projects in the region. And obviously, in the current COVID-19 scenario, there's a lot of question marks, but we have a reasonable confidence about what the future holds for us.
Great. So thank you, Ronan, for coming today and letting our viewers also understand more on the BIM technology and how it plays an important role when it comes to construction industry.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I look forward to meeting you again in the future.
Thank you so much.